All right. So, how can I support you today?
Yeah, I guess I'm here because well, we've been going back and forth for a few weeks now, and I'm at a place where I'd really like to start calling in an energy to help me move forward. I've been kind of in what feels like a rut to really simplify things. Um, Stuck in feelings of grief and remorse, surveying like past relationships, trying to figure out where I went wrong or someone else went wrong, and basically trying to fix things that can't be fixed. And I'm feeling in a better place now where I can see that the way forward is not in fixing those things, but just sort of sitting with the feelings that come up with them. And at the same time, I do want to start letting go of some of those heavier feelings, and it's hard for me to let things go. So I think like help with that process of recognizing that I might be letting go of something that I really love for someone that I really love, but
Mhm.
still wanting to do that so I can move forward.
Okay. All right. So, let's go ahead and take a nice big breath in and sigh it out. And if you were to walk away from today's session, what's the dream scenario? Like, how would you be experiencing life, relationships, being single right now, or like how would you like to be experiencing um, what would you like to be experiencing if we could just with a magic wand like
Mm.
get you to where you want to be?
I would like to be in a place where I can look to the future with like hope and excitement, and I can look at the past and at, the things that I'm trying to move forward from and not necessarily feel great about them, but I guess like keep what was good about them and not feel pulled into the gravity of what I feel like sad about or grieve like I'm grieving.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, I think a more ease with looking forward and less of a gravity pulling me to look back.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and thank you for sharing. Go ahead and take a nice big breath in. More ease, looking forward. And how about the present? How would you've identified how you want to feel looking towards the future and towards the past. How would you like to be experiencing the present?
Maybe that like forward looking or hopeful, excited energy. Yes, about the future, but just as much about the present. I would like to feel that.
Okay.
Um, I want to feel there's a lot of good in my life right now,
Hmm.
a lot of ways in which my life is opening up into like new friendships, new activities, new like career paths even. And
Awesome.
it's all stuff that I can objectively see is really great and it's what I want, but I haven't yet been able to really like feel it on a bone deep level um that this is good and and good for me. There's a
Yeah.
part of me that still like wants to be in the space that I'm moving away from.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and take a nice big breath in and exhale. So the Reiki is already flowing, kind of really working on your hips and the lower limbs right now. Take another big belly breath in and sigh it all out. One of the things that I'm really seeing the most of here is that there's sort of there's this like steady rumination around what went wrong. And it's almost like, it's like, ah, oh, I know I'm not supposed to go to McDonald's, but I'm going to McDonald's. It's like there's this like steady revisiting of the places where you feel like all of this stuff is going wrong. And it's like that kind of feels like it's not helping. It's kind of sucking you dry right now. And I think it's got to be one of those things that you almost just have to at this stage, you almost when you start going down that familiar hallway of thought, you have to just say no. Like you like catch yourself as soon as you go there. Because I think it's one thing to process the thoughts and the feelings that are coming up. That's really important. You're fabulous at reflection. You're so good at doing the deep introspection work. Like that you get like 10 gold stars for every single time. The thing that I'm really talking about is this there's this kind of like decaying rumination that's like reliving these painful parts over and over and over, and that's where you almost have to just like as soon as you catch yourself you have to say, you know what, I got to change the signal.
Hmm.
And this is going to be a really hard point because like the pattern of doing something different is like it takes a little bit of efforting to change the pattern of doing something different, right? It's like if we're like trying to go stop going to McDonald's, it takes 30 days for our flavor palette to change, right? And so, having a salad with like a new type of dressing might not hit that same salty, greasy, fatty kind of like rich thing that we're looking for in the French fries.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
this feels like a stage, right? When we're talking about the rumination of these past regrets, these grief moments that are coming up. It's like these are the hallways of these are like the punishment hallways. It's like familiar ground, and it's kind of like you just have to. There's no other way around this, but by saying I have to train my brain to stop going in that direction
Hmm.
because it's taking a tremendous amount of your energy, and it's really hard to feel hopeful. It's really hard to feel excited when the mind keeps wandering down these like dark hallways that are full of ghosts. So, what I would encourage you to do when you're starting to notice that your mind is going into these hallways of despair again, bust out your journal and write about it as if it's happening to another character. So taking out the phase of I did this, I said this, and make up a random character who is now engaging in that dialogue, who is sharing their story. So it's going to feel a little bit like, oh, am I writing fiction right now? Yeah. That's exactly the direction. Even if it's just a 5-minute timer where it just starts with um, Annabelle walks down a hallway and she meets her lover. And that lover says, I can't be with you anymore. And you retell the story as if it's different characters. And if you do this for about a week, you're going to get really, really bored of that story
Hmm.
just by changing the pronouns and writing it down. You're going to be like, you know what? Why don't we have Annabelle do something where she decides to go for a walk? Why don't we have her go for a walk with her dog? Why don't we have Annabelle go and get herself a nice little treat and have her call a friend? Because I want more for this character that's now on the page than her just doing the same story over and over again. So I want you to take this story and write it as fiction. Put in different character names to the same thing that you're actually experiencing. If you're going to go
Hmm.
down that hallway, do it in this way. Because the same effect of repatterning the story is going to happen. Because it's really hard to control the mind when there's 100 thoughts a day, and that 20 minutes later you're like, oh, I just caught myself. I just caught myself going down that hallway of gloom. But if you choose to engage with it and you grab that notebook and you just rewrite that script, or you just write the script several times, you'll have much more opportunity to start to change the story. And it's okay if it's like, well, why am I writing fiction when this is actually what happened to me? Because your brain doesn't actually know. There's no like the biochemistry reaction of the story is exactly the same if you're reimagining it in the past or if you're reimagining it on the page. Does that make sense or not make sense? Like, how is that landing for
It
you?
may no, it makes sense perfectly. It I'm realizing you're saying all this to a cow, so it might be
Yeah.
weird on your end too. Um, I'm nodding along on my end. Um, I you're spot on about the rumination, and I'm aware of it too. Like I have enough space now at least to notice when I'm starting to ruminate and start to say like, let's not do that. Um,
Yeah.
but I like this. I like this technique, and I think it will be helpful because, yeah, one thing that I've been reflecting on this week a lot is like the notion of like what honoring myself actually means, and like how it's difficult for me to do that for myself, just to like notice my feelings and let them be true. Um, and how my impulse is always to do that for other people. So I think that doing this exercise might be helpful,
Yeah.
in that it'll just kind of create another layer of, working with myself, but almost
Mhm.
like fooling my brain into treating myself like a different person. So I might
Yeah.
engage some of those stronger muscles of helping other people out, but use it for myself.
Yeah. And one of the things that feels very clear is that it's almost like the emotion comes first and then the thoughts come later. So
Mm,
start this written exercise when you start actually feeling heavy and grief, even
hmm.
if the thoughts are kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go grocery shopping, or I'm gonna call a friend, even if you feel like the thoughts aren't necessarily attached to the emotion, do
Hmm.
that same exercise when the grief comes up, because it's still that hallway of doom.
Hmm.
It's that still that haunted hallway.
Hmm.
Beautiful. There you go. So I wish there was a simpler, I mean, it is quite a simple exercise as a solution within this framework. I wish there was something I could do to like have a magic wand and say this is the thing, this is the thing. But I think in truth, this is really about like training yourself to continue to choose the vibrational patterns that you want to exist in.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And it's really, really hard when you're like vibing at a low pattern to be like, I want to be up there. Where you can just say, like, okay, well, I want to feel like a little bit better. And those are the things that we've talked about, like movement. Like, movement is huge for you. Like, changing the
Hmm.
signal is always going to be done by putting on some music, shaking your body, going for a run, doing a hike, yoga, like interpretive dance, literally any kind of movement that you desire is going to get you into a higher vibrational state of being.
Yeah.
But this kind of like hallway of gloom that sometimes feels like it's the grief and that remorse, like when those vibrational patterns start to it's like the McDonald's impulse.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to
Yeah.
try the written exercise, because there's nothing else that can really be done right now that isn't about you deciding and taking action steps around saying, like, I'm not going to let myself think like that anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, what's coming up for you here?
Hmm. I think I slipped into a moment of um, I just got a little d distracted by like what's happening next in my day, but um, it took me to this place of like uh, I'm both wanting to fill my days with things to keep me busy and wondering where the line between like distracting myself from something and actively kind of stepping away from something in the way that you're talking about right now is. Like what's that line between ignoring something and like giving it its space but not letting it sort of steer the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really important distinction. Distraction is just that. It's kind of allowing yourself to um, not be present with what is. And then there is a container where you can allow yourself to feel an experience and to be in um, you can it's the metaphor of like, okay, if you are a soccer stadium and you're the field, it's like you can still have the game of your thoughts and emotions and whatever kind of vasanas, whatever subconscious tendencies start to emerge are the players of the field. That's sort of the game. But you don't want to necessarily, like, a distraction is going like, well, I'm the soccer stadium, but I'm going to go out to the car and like make a phone call and just pretend that this whole game isn't even happening. Like I'm just going to ignore that there's cheers and boos happening behind me.
Mm,
That's the function, right? And sometimes that actually is really nice when we get a little overwhelmed to take a step back and say, I'm just gonna take a little distraction. I'm just gonna go hang out with someone new or go for a hike and just try to put all of this aside. So there are very
yeah.
practical aspects of distraction, changing the subject. But at this stage, I think it feels really important for you to have like some places where you're engaging because you're great at it. But we don't want to sacrifice like I mean like you have that quality of like engaging that a trained therapist could have, right? But you don't have the neutrality behind it because you're a deep thinker, you're a deep feeler, you have that like philosophical way, that the underlying tendency of really being able to look at a problem from many different perspectives. It's almost like um, the same way that a chess player can look at the board and analyze these different patterns of movement. And because that's a natural skill for you, it makes sense that you would want to do that with your own imaginings,
Mhm.
in your own experiences. But how do we transfer that skill to something that's a little healthier, right? How do we put aside when we actually want to move beyond grieving or move through grieving?
Mhm.
Because right now this is
Sorry, I
like,
just caught a glimpse of what the cow did when I drank tea, and it's
oh yeah,
hilarious.
I
Um,
know. Yeah, I know it's like
sorry.
so this is kind of like, you know, sometimes when we're moving bigger emotions, we're in the space of like letting this stuff come up into the field and really be felt and seen. But this is like a thing that is like this is like a very clear distinction of like this is what the mind is doing. This is like the labyrinth of the mind right now.
Mm,
And I don't want to dismiss it. It feels very important. It feels very relevant, but like this is sometimes why it feels a little like hard to detangle because it's a labyrinth. So
mhm,
this is very much sitting on your mental plane, which is kind of why I'm giving you um like mental based activities, right? It's like
mhm,
start writing it out, start creating a new script, or just writing the same script over and over and over again, because you will get bored of that story if you do it 10 times, and you will want that character to experience something else. On a vibrational level, if you want to change your vibration, it's the movement, it's the dance, it's like the physical side of things.
mhm,
Because like what I'm feeling, it's like, oh, there's like this restlessness. There's this restlessness. It's like, okay,
mhm,
I've been doing this for a long time. I want to change, but like, how do I get there? How do I get there? So talk to me about the things that light you up.
mm. Well, I am doing I'm in the like I'm halfway through a yoga teacher training.
Ooh, so cool.
Yeah. And that the whole process has been amazing. Really like transformational, and it feels very aligned with the direction I want to be going in and the sort of life I want to be living as far as like, oh, this is both a practice I can do for myself whenever, however, whenever I want, but I could
Hmm.
also have at least part of my like financial life staked to it if I
Sure.
wanted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Um, like finding a way to live my life based in like a body practice feels really, really great.
Hmm.
And all of the information that I'm getting from it, the community that I'm building through it,
Hmm.
um, all of that has been really, really great. And I would say it's really truly opened up only in the last like 2 or 3 months. So it's
Awesome.
coming after. It feels like something that's really opened up after the relationship ended.
Yeah.
Um, I've
That's
also
pretty big. That's pretty significant.
it's yeah. No, I don't want to undersell it, but it's also one of those things that's kind of it feels so big that I can only like process it in small bits still. Like I'm like realizing like, oh, this is big. This could be years and years and years of my life. So I don't want to like over oversaturate myself too quickly and like overwhelm myself with it.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one thing. And I also have been performing a lot. I do improv,
Hmm.
comedy improv,
Hmm.
and it's been a source of in the last few months real challenge, I would say.
Hmm.
But I've been I started doing it when I was in college. I came back to doing it about 2 years ago, and it's when I'm doing it and I'm in the flow of doing it, I have that inner voice that's like, oh yes, this is why I was put on this earth, like to do this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been hard the last 2 months because I feel like I just lost some confidence and like clarity around how to do it. And there's like there's it's more complicated than just like being in a sad headspace, I think
Yeah.
that has been the case. But recently I would say I've been moving back towards the like the joy and the ease of it, the real
Hmm.
connection to it, and finding the flow with it again. And when I am there, it is such a positive part of my life and also an area where I've like built a lot of community and um I'm hopeful that I'll be able to like teach and make that more a part of my life than just like a hobby, but like actually also like a partial career path or something.
Yeah. Teaching improv or teaching yoga or both?
Both, both. Being a teacher in general, I feel like I'm moving towards a life where I embrace that kind of a role,
Hmm.
but not in an academic sense. I
Yeah.
think I've always been really interested in teaching, but always had a sort of hesitance around getting into academia, and
Yeah.
it was hard for me to distinguish between those two things for a really long time.
Yeah.
And now I'm sort of seeing like, oh, this is a way to do that, but not get pulled into this.
Gotcha. Yeah. Have you ever had models of people who are like genuinely happy in your life?
I think that's been really hard, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, when I look at the people closest to me, my core relationships to my parents and my brother and
Hmm.
aunts and uncles, I would say like no. I would
Yeah.
say most of those people are like there's a lot of narratives of like also kind of remorse and like what could have been or like victimhood of like I could have had this if I hadn't done that or this person hadn't pulled me into X or Y or Z.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of like narratives around self-sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say like no one's jumping to mind. I'm sure if I thought about it, I could
Yeah.
pull someone who I've known, but I wouldn't probably have been close enough to call them like an actual like mentor or someone guiding
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
Maybe just someone who like being aware of them. I was like, huh, wow, okay, that seems like a
Yeah.
good path. I feel like I'm finding more people like that now.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I feel like that's another part of the shift that is like really happening in a slow, steady way is that like you are continually surrounding yourself with people who love life and are like vibing. And it's not to say that they aren't experiencing the ups and downs and the humanness of living, but there's people who are like, wow, I'm like super pumped about this thing, like this thing is going really well, like who talk about the things that are important to them, that are like having meaningful connections to them, who are like really like embodying that. And I think that that's one of the things that feels um, like it's kind of like beginning to blossom is that you need to be around people that you can learn from, that have like these models for like not disillusionment, right? But like genuinely, this is how I experience joy and safety and excitement and bliss and all these kind of bigger vibes. Because I think that it's almost kind of like, well, I've sort of grown up around this, a lot of people who have just made a lot of sacrifices, that have a lot of resentments. And that's sort of also the like vibrational frequency that you're like, I don't really want to live like this anymore. You're like, I don't want to be like, you're kind of this big fish who's swimming or like among like the minnows, right? And sort of like, I want to swim with other big fish. I want to swim with other big fish.
Hmm.
So I think as you're kind of exploring the yoga communities, and there's not to say that, people uh, in the world aren't experiencing depression and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to discriminate in any way against folks who are experiencing heavier, but I think you actually need more role models of like what it could look like to to be living a happier life, because it looks like the dream still feels a little far away, that like is anyone happy?
Mm.
And there's a ton of like people who are very centered in themselves, that are really like giving, that are living in service, that are feeling that their cup is filled and is overflowing. And those are the people that I want you to be around or to learn from.
Hmm.
And that could start with reading biographies, right? If you're kind of like, I don't know where these people are, like maybe you start picking up some biographies of some inspiring people
Hmm.
to see what their habits are, what their mindset is. Because at this stage, it's almost like we just have to allow ourselves to know that it is possible. Just like when little girls are often taught that like, like many generations ago, that like their only role was like to basically like be a wife and to have a child, right? And like the more that like little girls started to be exposed that like, oh, they could be a doctor, they could be a school teacher, they could be an astronaut, they could be a makeup artist, they could be any number of things. They could be an athlete. They could be an accountant. It's almost like that's when there was like more and more of those roads started being taken, just because they were exposed to these new ideas, these new potential realities. And I think that that's another stage that will be really, really helpful to you to just understand that like there are people who are actively experiencing peace every single day. So role models, underscore, underscore, underscore. Beautiful. Because this is a stage about like opening up to potential new realities here. Beautiful. Another big breath in and exhale. And some of that like grief is 100% from the family line. So it's also okay as you're writing those stories and changing the names of the character from I to Sally Mae or to Richard Bronx or to whatever, to recognize that sometimes those characters are actually going to go back in time.
Mm.
And you can also rewrite those scripts. There you go. And that will equally help to transform some of that grieving process. There's a lot of ways, but we're going to take a nice big breath and we're going to start because the grief is actually starting to come up a little bit more now that we've started kind of naming it. Because there's a little bit of like a mental attachment, and that's when you can kind of step back and say, okay, like I don't have to experience this reality, right? So there's these different strategies, whether the movement, the writing, the fiction of it. But we can also just go back right now and start to shift some of the grief itself, that whirlpool of grief. Once we become less attached to it, we can actually start to create movement in the energy itself of the grief. And, you know, I've heard people before that say things like, you're always going to experience grief. I don't know if I like grief doesn't go away. I don't know if I fully believe that. There you go. Another big breath in. Exhale. Yeah, I'm kind of working on this big ball of grief right now. It's almost living in your father's chest. And this is just sort of what happens when stuff is passed down ancestrally through the family. It's like, you know, it passes down, it passes down. It's like old luggage from the attic, right? It's like, I don't know what to do with this. The next person gets it. I don't know what to do with this either. The next person gets it. Till it gets healed, till it gets looked at and felt, resolved in some way. Beautiful. Because when I'm looking at your father's energy, it kind of looks like he is super content being grief. He's just like, this is life. This is life. It's always a little sad. There's little pockets of little bubbles of happy, but they're fleeting, and the underlying story is just sad. And that I think is the vibration that you're kind of like, I don't really want to do that. Every time you take steps towards your desired outcome, towards the life that you like are authentically building, that's going to be setting yourself up for the future. So all of your dominant emotions that you're experiencing right now are becoming your future, which is great because that means that at any point we can change our dominant emotion being here right now. Beautiful. Another big breath in and exhale. The other thing that I think that would be really helpful for you would be to like stop trying to like understand everything, because that is also slowing your process of connecting authentically to happiness and joy. It's just slowing down the train. Like imagine if you're going on a train and the train is going 90 miles an hour and it's cruising and you're heading up to Scotland and you're like slow down, I can't see everything.
Hmm.
There you go. Beautiful. Another big breath in. That slower processing, you're so good at helping other people slow down and unwind and pick apart like a situation or a an expression of what's happening. So like it's not like don't use your like natural skill sets, but like apply them to places where they're actually useful. Right now, trying to understand the history of grief and oppression in your family line, it's not useful to try to understand it. It's just not. There you go. Another big breath in, sigh it out. So just here and now, I want you to make a decision. I'm going to let the grief go. I know the grief that you're feeling is being activated from a recent breakup, and you're 1000% allowed to process in all the ways that you need to process. However, part of the grief string is connected to the family line. And that's why it sort of feels like this never ending weight. Like, why am I still feeling this heavy? Even when I'm feeling a little bit happier, I feel this heaviness because that's connected to the ancestral line. And your father has no interest in letting it go. So I want you to take a nice big breath in. And I want you to make a clear decision within yourself that I am not going to pick up any more of this family grief. I'm done accepting it. There you go. There you go. Grief work isn't always handled like that. It isn't usually handled like that. Ancestral work is often not communicated in that way. But here in this space, because your father is holding on to that energy so strongly, he's totally content, like hanging on to this kind of depressive grief quality. It serves him. But you do not have to be beholden to that same vibration just because you are the child. There you go. Beautiful. Yep, exactly. I'm not beholden to this pattern. I release this psychic pattern of grief. Beautiful. You got it. Yeah, where did you notice a change right there? What did you experience either in your physical, in your mind, or your awareness?
Yeah, in my body, I was just feeling this weird, like a really kind of distinct pulsation in my left bicep.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I think there was I I had an image of like my hand on that string, and I could saw it almost like a kite string or
Hmm.
something. And I could tell that if I like cut the string behind me, I would just get taken away from wherever it's connected to, and I'd be able to just sort of like fly with the kite, I guess. It
Yeah.
was very red. All of it was very red. There was like a red, like a black red behind it, but
Yeah. Beautiful. So take a nice big breath in. So go ahead and allow yourself to hold on to that string and kind of let yourself be carried up in a way. There you go. Yeah. It's almost like every time you go a little higher and higher into the atmosphere, another aspect gets stripped away. There you go. Beautiful. That's how it's done. Yeah, let that balloon, let that kite bring you higher and higher into the truth of your being. Beautiful. One more big breath in, all the way into the sun, all the way into the light of the universe. Even if it feels a little scary to go that bright, the closer and closer you get, the more and more it melts away, shedding the layers. You got it. Yeah, that's what's up. Take a nice breath in, sigh it out. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, what are you seeing or feeling right there?
just a lot of light.
Yeah. Even as you're inside of that light, I want you to almost take out a little Sharpie from your back pocket and just write grief into that light. This is from where all that Sharpie is almost like the writing from that Sharpie comes, the ink from that Sharpie comes from any pockets that you might still be holding on to within your container. Go ahead and write grief. Just write it. Yeah, and allow it to just go into the light. Yeah. Yep. Sometimes that's the nausea. Beautiful. That's exactly how it's done. Another big breath in and exhale. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What happened when you wrote grief into the light from that black ink?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, something funny happened. I didn't imagine doing it with a Sharpie. I imagined doing it with like a knife, but
Mm-hmm.
not like a kitchen knife, but like a ceremonial, like
Mm.
um
Ceremonial
that kind of a
bead.
knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been something I've it's come up in session with you before, like
Mm.
a while ago, years ago. And it was like a tool that I used at the time we were talking about like acid reflux. I was having
Mm.
digestive issues. And then the knife imagery came up with that and um, with this sort of like dark uh, energy or substance that was like kind of in my stomach.
Mm.
And I imagined using that knife to kind of cut myself open and take that stuff out.
Yeah.
But I just imagine that stuff being on that blade and I imagine I was writing with that.
Mm.
And it was very funny that you mentioned the nausea, but like in lining up with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Another big breath in. So these are tools that your soul is presenting to you that are arriving from the spiritual realm, that are offering you assistance. Yeah, you got it. Exactly. Take another big breath in and go ahead and carve anything else with that ceremonial blade that feels like it needs an opening or a release. It might be sad. It might be despair. It might be fear, hopelessness. Yeah, this is directly tied into the stomach pattern. So the upper digestion. Right, when we're talking about upper digestion, it's like teeth, salivary glands, throat, swallowing, stomach. Yeah, bile. Yep, exactly. Beautiful. Yeah, what words are you carving in here?
I was imagining loneliness
Yeah,
and sadness
yeah,
and worthlessness.
yeah. There you go. I want you in your mind and your imagination, I want you to just throw that whole blade into the light. Almost anything that that blade connects. It's almost like these darker fabrics that are all stitched together. I want you to just almost pull them into the light of loneliness. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you just keep pulling them almost like the way a magician pulls the scarves out of his hand over and over and over again. There you go. Exactly. Yeah, this is all digestive system stuff. One more big breath in. And I want you to just, in your mind and your imagination, just imagine that there's a little crying baby in the digestive system. And I want you to just pull it right out, almost like it's covered in all of these amniotic fluids. And it's like hair is pressed against its scalp, all wet. And it's cold and it's crying. And I want you to just hand off that little baby to an angel light being. Beautiful. You got it. Yeah. One more big breath in. And in your mind, in your imagination, I want you to just imagine there's all this golden rain coming down. It's all this rain that is also light. And it's coming down in these heavy drops and it's supporting the earth, you, your body as earth. Beautiful. Another big breath in, sigh it out. Yeah, we're just gonna let a little bit of that heaviness, that family trauma begin to move. There you go. Yeah. Those are the patterns unwinding. What did you feel or see right there? That's amazing.
I honestly got this. I was thinking about this. I got pulled into thinking about this project that I'm writing on. I was thinking about the rain
Mm,
and just it like washing things away for a new start,
yeah.
and like the sun coming out after a really heavy but brief um, summer rain.
Yeah. Beautiful. Another big breath in and sigh it all out. Go ahead and interlace the fingers. Big stretch overhead. Oh. As we're beginning to wind down the session, as we're beginning to close out, do you have any questions, any observations, any lingering, any loose threads?
Hmm. So much of what you said was like very spot on for where I've been, and it was all, I mean, it all sort of feels like stuff that I was aware of coming into this.
Yeah.
And I think that connecting what I'm going through now to a deeper pattern that I can see going back like through most of my life. I was writing, I write poems, and I was writing a poem on this exact theme before I came to this session today.
Yeah.
And it was like just about how when I was younger, I would react to like losing things or resist losing things
Mm,
in a way that just was, I mean, this is probably what most young kids do, but there was like a real gravity to it.
mm,
And I've kind of always felt that way, that the way I react to losing things is kind of bigger than the situation warrants.
yeah.
And something about understanding that as being connected to a longer story than just my life is
Yeah.
useful and kind of clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why anytime that you can like settle into yourself, because there's sometimes there's that like, oh yeah, like my lover's gone, like I miss these things, like I'm having a hard time accepting that this pattern is changing, even though it's opening up these other relationships in my yoga teacher training, and like the depth of my connection to that is really blossoming. It's like, oh, you know, it's okay. Like you're still experiencing the loss, but it's connected to that chord of like ancestral grief, and that's sometimes why it feels like, wow, why is this grief so loud? Why is this
Yeah.
grief like so strong and so deep and so much bigger?
Yeah.
So
And
anytime that you can offer that space where you kind of say, I like no longer accept that grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the last thing I observed in that process with especially with the baby was like I'm a I'm a C-section baby, and there's
Mm,
something about the imagery of that that really resonated of like
mm,
being lifted out of a stomach rather than being born from a birth canal.
yeah.
And yeah, the joke of like the story in my family was that I didn't want to go and I wasn't ready to leave because I had
Oh,
my hand behind my head and I was just lounging and I was really comfy in the womb and I just
yeah.
didn't want to go yet.
Oh,
And as funny as that is to think of, it also like there's a kind of deeper emotional truth to that of like, yeah, no, like I'm I'm always a little behind the schedule, it feels like, of when I'm supposed to move on from things.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm still like I'm always kind of wanting to hang out in the place that I was in.
Yeah. Yeah, you work at your own pace. Everybody has a different timeline.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for an amazing session today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stop the recording.